Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the very first session of our AI in 30. We are excited to have you here. AI in 30 is a new monthly webinar series created to help business leaders better understand and apply AI in practical and meaningful ways. Every third Wednesday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern, we'll spend 30 minutes exploring real-world AI use cases, useful tools, governance considerations, emerging technologies, and practical ways that organizations are leveraging AI today. One thing we've learned through our previous AI webinars is that people are hungry for information. Everyone thinks they should do AI, but what does that mean? AI is everywhere right now, but many leaders just are still trying to separate the practical value from the hype. And that's exactly why we've created this series. Our goal is not to overwhelm you with technical jargon or even turn you into an AI expert. Our goal is to provide approachable, actionable AI education that helps you make better decisions for your organization. Today's session is called AI is More Than ChatGPT and Chatbots, exploring the broader AI landscape. When most people hear the term AI, they immediately think of ChatGPT. But while generative AI is certainly important, it's only one piece of a much larger picture. So today we're going to explore the broader ways organizations are using AI, from workflow automation and predictive analysis and analytics to AI assistance and knowledge management. We are excited to have a guest expert joining us today. Our celebrity guest speaker today is Sam Nelson. Sam is the VP of Customer Experience and AI at Telarus, where she works with organizations of all sizes to identify and implement practical AI solutions that improve efficiency, streamline operations, and drive business outcomes. Telarus is a technology partner of Summit, and they give us access to many experts in different areas of IT for business. Sam brings extensive experience helping businesses understand where AI fits, what challenges it can solve, and how organizations can begin applying AI in meaningful ways. Sam is truly a rock star in the AI space, and we are thrilled to have her share her expertise with us today. So with that, I will turn it over to Sam.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on this call. Very, very excited to speak with everyone and looking forward to the content today. Hopefully, you find it helpful and it leads to more and more conversations. Very exciting time to be in this space. So, let's head over to the first slide here, where we're going to talk about the AI journey. So, before we jump into any particular use cases, I just want to start with some really good news for all of you is that you are not behind by any means. There is sort of this perception in the market right now that AI is moving really, really quickly and that you may be falling behind. Well, the reality is that most businesses are still very much in the early stages of what we call the AI journey. And so when you look at how this takes place, as mentioned earlier, I do work with several businesses, big and small. Usually, organizations will move through four kind of different unique phases. So, for the first one is awareness. It's just generally learning what AI can and cannot do. And this is typically where people will play around with ChatGPT, right? They head into the experimentation phase, the second phase. They try pilots for tools like ChatGPT or Copilot. But then they move very quickly into this third phase around workflow integration. This is where AI sort of becomes embedded into sort of daily work. And then this final transformation phase is where AI really changes how the organization operates holistically. And a lot of organizations today are sort of between the awareness and experimentation phase. And the companies that are winning are not necessarily the first ones to adopt AI. What they are doing is they're applying it effectively to real business problems. So let's head to the next slide because the reality here is that AI is not the goal. The outcomes actually are. So generally when people say, oh, looks like the slides went away there. Let's go ahead and bring them back. Let's see them. Good. I can keep going. But generally, just when people say they want AI, they usually mean they want better business outcomes. And so organizations do not actually buy AI just for the sake of AI. They actually buy things like productivity, like cost reduction, growth, better experiences, better employee and customer experiences. They reduce overall risk. And AI right now is simply the mechanism underneath these desired outcomes. So, a really helpful way to kind of think about AI is this: nobody wants a drill, they want the hole, right? AI is the drill. So the conversation should always start with what is your business problem or your desired business outcome, not necessarily the technology, the features, the capabilities that you see all the time popping into your inbox on the news, right? On the billboards. It's not that. It's actually what are you trying to achieve at the business? What will help save you time, make you more productive, etc. So let's head to this next slide and take a look at AI in action, because we move well beyond the chatbots. All right. So when there are when you look at initially what you're talking about, with the chatbots and what have you, it's very basic. But there are actually four kind of major categories where organizations are seeing true value in AI. Again, well beyond the chatbot. The first one is around workflow automation. So includes things like invoice processing, think of approvals, scheduling, data entry. Essentially, if anybody is doing repetitive work, AI can usually help with those things. The second piece on the right here is around knowledge search. So just imagine asking, your organization's documents or repository some kind of question in natural language that you would ask the same way, like a chat GPT, and like any policies, contracts, HR documents, procedures, all of that is actually searchable just using your natural language and the way that you communicate with other people. The third one in the bottom left is around predictive analytics. Now, AI can actually help forecast things like demand. It can identify risk a lot earlier, and it can even surface some insights that us humans might miss. Just because there's so much data out there, it lives in several places, and a lot of times we just do not see it. It's hard for us to make a lot of assumptions out of data that is sort of sprawled everywhere. The fourth one is bottom right is around AI assistance. So in addition to all of the data search, the knowledge search, and sort of process automation, AI can actually now draft things like emails, it can summarize meetings, it can even take it a next step and recommend next best actions. So at the end of the day, it's really important to understand that the best AI projects do not create new work. They actually remove those bottlenecks within an organization. They can actually remove any existing friction that may be present within any business processes. So heading into the next slide, let's take a quick look at some use cases across different industries. So let's head to this next one here, where AI looks very, very different in every industry there is. But the outcomes are, at this time, remarkably similar in the conversations that we're having. So for nonprofits in particular, I point these four out because they seem to be very popular, but nonprofits in particular, AI can help with things like donor engagement, grant writing, think volunteer onboarding, really kind of streamlining a lot of those processes. For law firms, it could take, contract review. It can help accelerate a lot of that. It can do a lot of legal research, any document search, and of course, keeping humans in the loop, right? You never want to you never want to completely outsource everything to AI, right? You want to make sure there's a human in the loop, making sure everything is accurate. And in the bottom left, even construction firms, they're actually using AI to streamline permits, field reporting, safety documentation. And on the bottom right, educational organizations are using AI for things like enrollment workflows, right? A lot of student communications, knowledge management. Another one I want to mention as well is for businesses who provide services. So think plumbing, landscaping, what have you. AI receptionists can actually take calls on behalf of people. They can take calls, chats, emails, and actually schedule appointments as well as handle appointment confirmations. So the important takeaway on here is that AI is not necessarily industry specific. Nearly every organization has repetitive processes and really valuable data that AI can sort of help unlock or reveal. Now, Let's head to this next slide where we're going to talk a little bit about where to start. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about AI right now is that it requires replacing everything that you have. It's sort of funny. We think, oh, there's a new technology, then what do I have to get rid of? But in many cases, that's actually not the idea at all. In fact, AI often acts sort of as this layer on top of systems that you already have. So think of your CRM or your customer relationship management solution, or your email platform, your document repositories, any ERP systems, any customer systems, right? It actually sits on top of all of that. So the most successful organizations actually follow a few key steps when implementing artificial intelligence generally, regardless of what it does. Typically, they start small. They integrate rather than just replacing things in the technology stack. And then they expand it over time. In other words, they expand what exactly is working. So there are very key performance indicators or key items you have to take note of to measure success of these different projects if you pursue AI initiatives, which obviously the team here can help with. But expanding what works, it's really often less about buying completely new technology, and it's actually more about just making better use of the technology and data that you already have within your organization. That is really the key function of AI today in businesses. Now, on this next slide, let's talk about why some AI projects succeed and some don't. This is really important to understand because I think we have this conception of, oh, AI is so cool. We see it in the media. It's going to change the way we do business entirely. And look, it certainly has tremendous potential. Now, organizations are seeing things like productivity gains. They are seeing cost savings, think improved employee customer experiences, and significant competitive advantages. But the reality here is that not every single AI project succeeds. And we want to shed some light on this for you today so that you're aware of some potential challenges that could come up as you are starting to evaluate AI pieces to the puzzle, right? Some common challenges are things like poor data quality. The data is not clean, it's in several places. We're not really sure who maintains the data, right? Where does it live? How do we bring it all together? Another one is the lack of clear goals. Typically, as soon as we start talking about artificial intelligence in an organization, everybody wants a piece of it. Right? And so it's really important to take down what the desired outcomes are, what the clear goals are for each project. Then comes things like change management, maybe some difficulty measuring ROI. So the organization seeing the most success within AI initiatives actually starts with a business problem or some type of outcome desired. So instead of asking the question of where can we use artificial intelligence, rather ask the question of what problem are we trying to solve or what bottleneck are we attempting to get rid of? And that pivot in the way that you think is going to determine the success you have with kicking off these AI projects or potential AI initiatives. So, in the next slide, let's go over how ready the organization is. When people hear the term AI readiness, they typically think that they need perfect data and that they need a perfect strategy before they even get started. And that is actually rarely true. The entire organization, big or small, right? You don't need the entire organization to be completely AI ready because the fact of the matter is AI is progressing, it's changing, the landscape is changing. It's probably changed in like the last 16 minutes we've been on this call. But you don't need the entire organization to be full on ready. You just need a single area where there is a very clear business goal, where the data does exist, and where people are willing to adopt any type of change, right? You also want to make sure that governance is in place. So think of guardrails around how people are leveraging artificial intelligence. You set the boundaries. And then you also have some type of success criteria that can be measured within this project. So if you start with a team, or maybe you start with a particular workflow, you start with one very measurable outcome. And typically, you can move an AI initiative forward, even if the rest of the org is not necessarily ready to do so. So I just want to paint the picture of, hey, it is absolutely possible, regardless of sort of where you are, but start with what's going to be the most impactful. So in this next slide, let's go there now, but start small and actually solve real problems. So if you're wondering kind of where to begin, you can start with any of those repetitive tasks. I always advise folks to look for the workflows with really clear steps and where the data is present. Employee productivity projects usually deliver some of the fastest returns, just because from productivity standpoint, if you think of all the mundane tasks that you are having to do or your people are having to do and sort of outsourcing that to AI, those folks can actually work on more complex tasks that require more human resource. So yeah, on the other hand, you want to avoid trying to transform the entire organization on day one. And yeah, you want to avoid really highly experimental projects or just replacing anything all at once. What typically happens here is you will get your hands on a few licenses and say, hey, try these out and see what we can do here. It's a very vague statement. And a lot of the times, I'd say the majority of the time, those projects do not typically take off. They don't successfully deploy in the long term because there were no guardrails set around it. There was no success criteria set up around this AI initiative. And sometimes you have, on the other hand, folks who say, hey, I want to replace all of this stuff with artificial intelligence. But then you come into a situation where, oh, we're not really sure how to architect this AI piece to replace all of the systems we had in place previously, things like that. So start small, solve real desired business outcomes, and start there. So let's head to sort of this final slide I have for you, which is where do you look? Where do you start essentially? So I really kind of want to leave this group with a few questions. One is, what is taking longer than it should today? It's a great way to identify where your time is most spent, and that you can kind of outsource to AI to do. Second is, where do employees or maybe you just spend the most time on repetitive work? And then third, if you could eliminate one bottleneck tomorrow, what would it be? So the answers sort of to these questions often point directly to where you should start with your very first AI opportunity. AI generally, it doesn't have to be complicated. In a lot of cases, the biggest wins just come from solving sort of small but persistent problems. So, with that, I actually want to open it up. Let's open it up for questions. Let's maybe hear any challenges or opportunities you're seeing within your own organizations. Let's hear it, folks. This is a two-way street here. Anyone who wants to chime in, or you can chime in on the chat. I do have that up if you don't want to speak up, but wanted to open it up.
Oh, we have a question, Sam. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'll go ahead and let the other question go.
Sure. One question we have, Sam, is how should organizations take into account policies around AI?
Yeah. Ooh, this is a really good one. This comes up so often. I'm so glad you brought this up. This is a loaded question. So, AI policies and governance. This is a massive one. So, policies generally are becoming, well, very, very important. It's not because organizations need to slow down innovation, but because they need to use AI very responsibly. And we know this, right? Is that they need to use it responsibly, but they also have to use it consistently. So, when you look at an AI policy, it doesn't need to be complicated. At a minimum, you should be answering questions like, which tools are approved, what types of data can and cannot be entered into AI systems, who's responsible for reviewing any AI generated content, and also just ensuring that the outputs are accurate and compliant, right? Because compliancy is huge here. So just think of AI policies as sort of this acceptable use for things like email or internet. The goal is not to prevent AI usage, but it is there to provide sort of the guardrails so that employees can use it safely and effectively. And when we look at AI governance, I have this conversation day in and day out, but it's typically around five key things. It's one, what is acceptable use? In other words, what tools are approved? It's two, it's around data protection, right? So don't ever enter confidential, regulated, sensitive information into any unauthorized tools. There's three, human oversights. Yes, AI does assist people, but people still have to remain accountable. This is a huge one. And I would say the fourth one, we go into transparency. So, should employees disclose when AI was used, right? How should AI generated content be labeled internally or even externally? And the last one is around security and compliance, for sure. If anything, is probably the first thing, but how do you monitor usage? How are you, from a security perspective, maintaining audit trails where it's most appropriate? Just making sure also from an industry perspective, making sure that the compliance guardrails with any like regulations relevant to those particular industries are being upheld. So when I look at AI governance, those are sort of the five components that you definitely want to focus on.
That's a good question. And our next webinar is actually on AI governance. So that kind of dovetails in there nicely. Were there other
Perfect.
questions?
Yes, I was curious about data safety and AI and setting up a siloed structure to where you can use AI where the information is kept siloed in your specific data set. Is there a way to do that? Is there recommendations that you have on specific AIs that are better than others in that sense?
Yeah. So when we talk about, let me kind of frame it up for everybody, AI working best in different silos. So what we've seen over the last couple of years is this situation where you have these AI companies focusing on very particular use cases or solving for very specific outcomes. In other words, these AI companies are purpose building themselves to solve for very specific initiatives. And when you look at what's best practice, should we kind of treat data silos within an organization a little differently? I hate to say this answer, but it does depend. It completely depends on the function of each department, and then what's best going to serve each of those. Now, and that's why I always say start really small. Because when you start small, you see success, then you start to figure out, hey, can I roll that across other departments within an organization or other silos? And if that makes sense. Sometimes it absolutely does not make sense. And that's actually why you now start to see things like AI aggregators or AI gateways, where you have a license, say, for example, for an organization, and you want to distribute different functions to different departments with one license, but access to all of the different LLMs and generative AI capabilities. So let's say, marketing wants to use, a ChatGPT versus accounting who wants to use Claude, or coders who want to use something else. You can actually do that all with one license with some of the aggregators now who have come to market, but also tying a nice bow around it from a security perspective to say, hey, what are people using it for? What are the use cases that are most effective and it being used for? And so in that perspective, you can still allow each individual department with different data sets to leverage sort of the same siloed information and guardrails, but having an overarching bow of, hey, everything is secure, right? We have oversight on what everyone is doing within AI with something like an aggregator. And that includes things like Copilot or Gemini or what have you, right? And so, yeah, there's a couple different approaches, but it is going to be very industry specific as well as use case specific. A little more insight there is I have seen both in large and smaller organizations. I've seen both, where sometimes it's like, hey, we just want these folks working here with this data. It's theirs. We don't want it talking to another department. Totally fine. Again, just depends on the function. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but hopefully that gave you some insights. With AI, it's a little tough to say this is how you should do it. It's more of a, hey, let's figure out how you want to get there, and we'll figure this out sort of almost as we go and as you morph with the use cases you uncover being solved by AI.
Good questions. Good questions. Okay, so we're rounding out the half hour here, and we really want to keep these like 30, as the title AI in 30 says. But we want to thank everyone who joined us for our first AI in 30 session. And one of the biggest takeaways that we'd encourage you to remember, and Sam highlighted this pretty prominently, is that AI is not the goal. And the goal is to solve a business problem. So whether that's improving productivity, reducing your costs, streamlining your workflows, creating a better employee experience, or helping your organization make better use of the data that it already has, AI is simply a tool that can help you to get there. So for some organizations, the right first step might be a workflow automation. For others, it might be better knowledge management, predictive analytics, or AI assistance. The challenge isn't usually finding an AI solution. I mean, they're out there. The challenge is figuring out where AI can create the most value for your organization. So we are offering everyone on the call, if you'd like, a complimentary 30-minute AI readiness conversation. You can bring your questions to the call. If you'd like to discuss potential AI opportunities, identify some quick wins, we can talk you through some possible use cases or get a second opinion on where to start. We would be very happy to have that conversation with you. You'll see a QR code on the screen that'll take you directly to our scheduling page. And again, these are informational webinars. Like, no, this isn't a sales presentation. It's no pressure, just a practical discussion about your organization, your goals, and where AI may be able to help you. And before we wrap up, don't forget AI in 30 is a monthly series. We'll be back next month on the third Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern with another practical AI topic and a guest expert. So thank you again for spending part of your afternoon with us, and we hope to see you at future AI in 30 sessions. Have a great day, everyone.